All right, well, I'll tell you what is good. Dan Bongino, he's one of my favorites.
True.
He's here. He's the host of Unfiltered with Dan Bongino and the Dan Bongino Show on Fox Nation. Former NYPD officer and former Secret Service agent and friend. My good friend Dan, welcome.
Hey, thank you. I have Pete on my show tonight, by the way, and there's a little question I popped about Chick-fil-A, too. So, you know, unintentional segue. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got a little surprise video, too, for the end of the segment. It's hot about Pete. Right, Pete?
This is the way Dan operates. Dan says you got two topics on your segment, and then he pops the third one on you that he didn't tell you about.
I did it to Jesse last week, and then I popped the video on him. You're going to love it. I promise. We catch him. Pete breaks the golden rule of broadcasting nearly every week. You have to find out what it is on the show tonight.
You have to find out what is the golden rule of broadcasting.
Well, Dan, somebody else broke the golden rule at the White House press room, and that was Peter Doocy by asking a really tough question, because nobody else does, frankly. And he asked Jen Psaki how long the administration's been spying on us. Take a look.
For how long has the administration been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine misinformation?
Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute. Our biggest concern here, and I frankly think it should be your biggest concern, is the number of people who are dying around the country because they're getting misinformation that is leading them to not take a vaccine.
But big concern, though, I think, for a lot of people on Facebook is that now this is Big Brother watching you.
They're more concerned about that than people dying across the country because of a pandemic where misinformation is traveling on social media platforms. That feels unlikely to me. If you have the data to back that up, I'm happy to discuss it.
Dan, what's more dangerous? Losing our First Amendment rights or Big Brother, as Doocy said or asked her?
Listen, Rachel, you know, I've been watching the show the entire time, and you're right. One, it's a straw man argument she sets up. That's not the question Peter asked her, and she diverts to oh, you must want people to die. That's not what Peter said. He asked a very simple question. Are you monitoring people on Facebook or are you not? Because the day before, Jen Psaki said, and the White House crew up at the lectern said, we are monitoring 12 accounts on Facebook that promote what they categorize as misinformation. Guys, she said it, not Peter. So Peter asked a very simple question. Is the government monitoring a Facebook account like you said, or are you not? And she does what every tyrannical propagandist in human history has ever done. She doesn't answer the question. She switches it to a different question. You must want people to die. And you said earlier, Rachel, listen, even if that was the question, which it wasn't, you know what? Yeah, I am concerned about people's rights to freedom and free speech over government. And I don't want people to die, but that's a serious question. Let me make this argument to you right now, though. The biggest threat, it may be a controversial one, but it's real. The biggest threat to freedom of speech in the country right now is not the government. That's actually number two. They're a big threat, but it's not the biggest. The biggest threat are the big tech companies. Because the public space is now almost entirely encompassed by Facebook and Twitter. That's where the political arguments are happening. It doesn't matter, Rachel, abortion arguments, gun control arguments, tax arguments. If you can't speak, you will never make the argument, and the elections are over. Forget it. We lost before it even began.
Dan, you mentioned threat number one and threat number two, but what's so stunning about this week is they're coming out at the podium, not only just saying it and admitting it, but making the case for the fact that the White House should be working with big tech and the other way around to determine what or is not misinformation, which is intentionally vague. It is Orwellian doublespeak. They want it to be vague so they can define it. They're colluding to define what's misinformation, and they're saying it out loud, Dan. I can't think of anything more dangerous.
Yeah, and you know, listen, I know liberals have a tough time with this because they have this tyrannical inclination by nature, but maybe if we switch the script a little bit and described it this way, maybe you'd understand how dangerous this is, allowing the government to deputize private entities to do what the government can't do, which is squash and abridge free speech. Well, let's say a Republican administration came out and said, hey, guys, listen, there's a lot of misinformation out there about firearm usage in the United States, which, by the way, Pete, you all know. I mean, it's probably the argument over the Second Amendment is liberal misinformation all the time, right? So what if they came out and said, here's the data. Liberals are lying about gun control, the effects of gun control. We know it. They're lying about it. So what we're going to do is, because it's a constitutional right to own a firearm, we're going to work with Facebook to protect that constitutional right and get rid of the misinformation liberals are putting out there about gun control working in Chicago. Liberals would be on this network, Cujo style, foaming at the mouth, clawing at their faces with pink hats on, screaming at the sky, enraged. And that's a constitutional right. If the no, we're protecting the right to the Second Amendment. You have a right to speak out about vaccines or whatever you want, and the White House is doing the exact same thing. Please tell me, any lib listening to the show, please explain to me how what I just said is any different than what the White House is proposing now. You can't. That's why you start screaming at the sky, you throw the pink hat on, and you start foaming at the mouth, because the truth hurts, and you know it.
Well, speaking of threats, you ranked threats a moment ago, Pete, big tech, government. I think you left out Republicans, though. That's according to Miles Taylor, who's a former chief of staff to the DHS secretary, who was the famous anonymous source inside the Trump administration. He was on MSNBC with an astonishing bit of sound and pictures here, Dan, I want you to react to on the other side.
I've spent my whole career not as a political operative. I've never worked on a campaign in my life other than campaigning against Trump. I'm a national security guy. I've worked in national security against ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Russia. And the number one national security threat I've ever seen in my life to this country's democracy is the party that I'm in, the Republican Party. It is the number one national security threat to the United States of America.
You know, Dan, I think this Yahoo only represents one moment, but that moment is part of a climate of increasing hyperbole. Because if you think about Joe Biden saying we are now more divided since any point since the Civil War, or was it Matthew Dowd the other day describing the events of January 6th as worse than 9/11, and then you add to it this, there's no end to this hyperventilating, this really divisive rhetoric.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. Listen, Miles Taylor's clearly running out of, media hits. Nobody's interested in his rather boring life. So what did he do? He figured he could, I know the business guys, you've been in a while. He emailed the booker and he said, oh my gosh, if I say something outrageous, I'll get on TV. And he wrote to the booker, I'll come on and I'll say the Republican Party's like Al-Qaeda, whatever. You all know that's what happened. So let's not pretend this guy's any deeper than that. He's a superficial zero. The guy doesn't have anything going for him in his life. But here's the hilarious part about that. What'd you guys catch about that clip? Who's on that panel? He's talking about national security. He's on with Eric Swalwell. He's on with the Chinese spy guy. He's on a panel on MSNBC with the Chinese spy guy. Did anybody catch that? I'm watching this on return like, this can't be real. He's on with Chinese spy dude on the panel talking about national security. I give up. You can't make this stuff up.
No,
Well, and it's just I fought ISIS and Al Qaeda from my keyboard. I'm a national security guy. Makes you feel real good about our security.
Yeah, if that's who's leading the charge, we're all in trouble.
It's crazy. Well, Dan, hey, by the way, you get lots of time to talk on TV, but you're going to get an opportunity to talk at the Turning Point Student Action Summit as well. I'll see you down there in Tampa. Give us a preview. What are you going to talk about?
You know, I can't wait to see you guys down there. I'm really looking forward to it. Whenever I get in front of these young, college kids, I always make the point to thank them, Pete. It's really hard to be a conservative. I mean, listen, Rachel, you've been going through it as long as I have for decades. It's hard to be, in this movement and a college kid on a college campus. I always tell them they're the real renegades now. They're the real misfits. They're the real tough guys now. It's hard to be a college kid on college campus. And, I just want to make the point. I'm going to use the Teddy Atlas analogy. Teddy Atlas said once, famous boxing trainer, he said, truth comes to people in many ways, but it comes real quickly in the ring. And, we're all under fire now. We're all in the ring. We're all getting hurt. And Teddy said you learn a lot about yourself when you're getting punched. And we're getting punched right now. And I think a lot of conservatives are learning a lot about how strong they can really be, especially these college kids. So I'm going to thank them and try to inspire them to keep it up and know that people like us, you three and me, we're behind them, man. Conserving freedom and liberty matters.
Well, America's never had a better fighter than you, Dan. I mean, you really are out there, and everyone looks up to you, and those kids will too, and they're really lucky to have you.
Dan, Pete, Senator Rick Scott, all of them speaking today. Fox Nation is going to stream it all. It's the Turning Point Summit. You can get your subscription at Fox Nation with the code SAS.
That's exactly right. The conference starts today, goes through Tuesday. Don't miss Dan's speech. I've had a chance to hear him give it before.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
He's amazing.
You go to Fox Nation, put in SAS. Dan Bongino, have a great Saturday, brother.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.